Hi, I'm Carl Azus for CNN Student News. Jumping right into our first story this Thursday, the U.S. military has admitted that it's responsible for the bombing of a hospital in Afghanistan last weekend. Officials say the facility in the northeastern city of Kunduz was hit accidentally during an American airstrike. The Pentagon, NATO, and the Afghan government are investigating how and why this happened. But Doctors Without Borders says that's not good enough. The international medical charity ran the hospital. 12 medical workers and at least 10 patients were killed in the bombing. The U.S. has changed its explanation of what brought on the airstrike, and Doctors Without Borders says even war has rules and that the bombing was a violation of the Geneva Conventions. These are a series of international agreements dating back to the 1800s. They set rules for how civilians and captured or injured troops should be treated. Attacks on hospitals are outlawed.
In the aftermath of the attack on the Doctors Without Borders hospital, a stunning military order from the top U.S. commander.
I've directed the entire force to undergo in-depth training in order to review all of our operational authorities and rules of engagement.
That order an acknowledgement that something went wrong. Rules of engagement spell out when and how the U.S. military can conduct airstrikes, like the AC-130 gunship that hit the hospital. Doctors Without Borders says the U.S. knew it was a hospital. They were under attack for 30 minutes. It could not have been a mistake.
Until we're told otherwise, and until we see an independent investigation, we'll presume that this was in fact a war crime.
Did this violate U.S. military rules?
Even though the Afghans request that support, it still has to go through a rigorous U.S. procedure to enable fires to go on the ground.
There was no forward air controllers, American forward air controllers on the ground.
So we had a special operations unit that was in close vicinity that was talking to the aircraft to deliver those fires.
If the U.S. knew it was a hospital, did reports of Taliban firing justify the attack?
We would never intentionally target a protected medical facility.
Standards for airstrikes, at least initially, do not appear to have been met at the hospital. Military rules require U.S. troops are at risk. Contrary to initial reports, U.S. troops were not fired on. When the U.S. is going after al-Qaeda, here it was the Taliban. When Afghans are about to be overrun, here the Afghans were trying to retake the area. Campbell said the overall security situation in Afghanistan is still so uncertain, he needs to revise his recommendations about a troop reduction.
We have to provide our senior leadership options different than the current plan that we're going with.
It remains to be seen how many of the 10,000 U.S. troops still in Afghanistan will remain after the end of next year. But with ISIS, the Taliban, and al-Qaeda still pressing for their advantage in Afghanistan, it's very much an open question. Barbara Starr, CNN, The Pentagon.
Today, we're announcing some of our viewers from the largest and most populated country in South America. That's Brazil. There, in its largest city, Sao Paulo, we're happy to be part of your day at St. Francis College. Next, to the largest city in Kentucky, that's Louisville. And that's where we found the Eagles watching at Eastern High School. And in eastern South Dakota, not too far from Sioux Falls, hello to everyone at Brandon Valley Intermediate School. It's in the city of Brandon. More unrest in the Middle East between Israelis and Palestinians. A number of small-scale attacks by Palestinians have killed or wounded several Israeli civilians, including a 15-year-old boy who survived an assault on Sunday. Israeli police have been accused of shooting and killing a 13-year-old Palestinian boy on Monday. Last week, Israel restricted access to an ancient part of Jerusalem where 2 attacks on Israelis occurred. That angered Palestinian leaders because it's a holy site. Most Palestinians are Muslims, and Islam's third holiest site is in Jerusalem's Old City. It's known to Muslims as the Noble Sanctuary. Most Israelis are Jewish, and Judaism's holiest site is the same complex. It's known to Jews as the Temple Mount. Tensions between Israelis and Palestinians go back decades, and some are questioning whether some peace agreements between the two sides still stand.
The Oslo Accords have been the bedrock, the basis of cooperation between Israelis and Palestinians ever since they were signed back in 1993. Now, this all started with secret meetings between Israelis and Palestinians in the early 90s. These meetings went on for a while before it became known, before the details really came out about what the accord was all about and what it would accomplish. One of the big points here was that Palestinians recognized Israel's right to exist, and Israel recognized the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, as the Palestinians' legitimate governing body. That was a big step, and it led to more progress from there. Part of Oslo was to lay down a foundation of moving forward between these two sides, between Israelis and Palestinians, for example, on security coordination, on economic considerations, and on setting a timetable for pushing negotiations forward. It set a 5-year timetable for creating a peaceful two-state solution. That was the idea. That was Oslo 1. 2 years later came Oslo 2, which was an expansion on Oslo 1, but essentially built on the same agreement, cooperation and coordination between Israelis and Palestinians, and trying to move the peace process forward. Oslo left a lot on the table. It didn't try to hammer out what would happen with Jerusalem or where exactly the borders between an Israeli state and a Palestinian state would be. It left that to future negotiations. Now it's 22 years later, and the failure in that process, the failure to create real progress on a peace settlement, has left many people here, Palestinians especially, very frustrated with these negotiations. The Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas says if Israel won't abide by their part of the agreement, the Palestinians have no reason to abide by their part of Oslo. So what does that mean? Is Oslo canceled? Well, that question we'll learn more in the coming days and weeks. But if it is canceled, that means the basis for cooperation between these two sides and the agreement that really pushed forward cooperation here is gone. That could move this whole process back to square one, or it could take it in an entirely different direction.
Tomas Alvarez was a high school social worker in California. He was frustrated by the number of minority students in his area that he saw dropping out or being accused of crimes. And Alvarez didn't think that traditional therapy was effectively connecting with some of them. So what he did about it makes him today's study in character.
I really grew up in a lot of different places. When you have a lot of things that aren't stable, it kind of gets you in a really bad situation. Where I really felt alone, and it turned into me doing the wrong things.
As a former school social worker, I witnessed how challenging it was to engage African American male and Latino male students in talk therapy. I knew that if I wanted to really engage this group, that I would have to do something different.
You're gonna have 3 statements, 2 that are true about yourself and 1 that's a lie.
Beats, Rhymes, and Life is one of the country's first hip-hop therapy programs where young people turn their pain into music.
Write my feelings down cause I'm too shy to speak, but I'm loud on the beat, that's what makes me unique.
Our program creates opportunities for youth to reflect and tell their story.
I can make a difference, and I'm always looking forward to that new day.
It's important for young people to create something that they can be proud of. And the studio makes that possible.
Turn that pen and the paper to a story for the ages.
A lot of people come for the hip hop, but they stay for the healing.
I was skeptical at first, but it doesn't feel like it's a therapy session.
I give you my life, cause it's all that I got.
When I'm rapping, I just let it all go.
What people need to realize is that when our young people have a voice, they can learn to help and heal themselves.
Before we go, you've seen dogs, you've probably seen a mechanical bull, but have you ever seen a dog ride a mechanical bull? Now you have. Haley, that's the dog, she's a rescue. She's also a cattle dog, taking that title to new heights. Haley doesn't need to work on the farm because she's an attraction at fairs and rodeos. She knows how to sit and stay even when the bull beneath her feet is doing anything but. So that ain't her first rodeo. And what cattle do this? With such excellent mechanics and an ability to find balance that's simply uncanine, it's no wonder Haley rounds up a crowd whenever she saddles up to ride. CNN Student News swings back your way tomorrow.